Hi, good day. Um, so today I wanted to talk about why it's so important to go on this spiritual journey for yourself. Maybe another way to put that is be very, very careful with who you trust to guide you along the spiritual path. Why is that? Um, there are a lot of reasons, um, but the Bible can be a little cryptic. Cryptic. It can seem like it's saying one thing, but it's actually implying or suggesting that maybe it's actually something else. So one of the biggest core messages of this channel is that this is supposed to be a path of self-discovery. So you're constantly asking yourself, what does this mean to me? And how do I react to it? And why? Because the spiritual path, the journey that you take is deeply and substantially subjective. So for someone else to come in and tell you what something means, it may have no relevance to you. But those that are especially susceptible to uh, desperation, I mean, say you've been going through your life and you just can't seem to get ahead. I mean, if you were anything like I was, you have this quiet desperation where you keep doing what you're supposed to be doing according to society, um, but nothing actually, none of it is fulfilling. Um, an example would be I've always needed and I was always desperate for money, even when I had it. I mean, there's an irony there. But thankfully, um, that was completely necessary for me to go on my particular brand of spiritual journey. And this is this is why it's so important for you to take this personally. So I just wanted to touch on a couple things that of how, like, if you're in your desperation, you turn to somebody that you don't fully understand. Thanks, Batman. And because of that, you may be led down the wrong path. And it's pretty easy to do so. Um, and this is when I say that the Bible is kind of cryptic, right? Or it can be. Or it can be open to interpretation, to say the least. Especially if someone is well versed, no pun intended, in the Bible, they can skew and cherry pick particular sayings that will support their point of view to whatever ends that they're trying to reach, right? So for them, it's a completely selfish um, endeavor. Whereas if you do it and if you take it upon yourself, it's selfless, right? Again, irony. The more you discover about yourself, the more yourself starts to dissolve away. And believe it or not, that is a greater benefit for the rest of humanity. It doesn't seem like it, right? Because again, this is not something that's touted by society as a worthwhile mission. All the while putting it in high esteem. It's just so funny how the world works sometimes. So anyway, a couple verses that I wanted to point out of how they're not necessarily saying anything bad, but you could see how it could be misconstrued, especially when the mind gets involved, right? So a couple from Matthew and Proverbs. So Matthew chapter 11, verse 25. At that time Jesus answered, saying, I thank thee, O my Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because thou hast hidden these things from the wise and the men of understanding, and hast revealed them to children. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and rely not on your own wisdom. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. Yeah, so as you can see, or as you can hear, or as you can read, um, context is important here. It's always, context is important. God is context. Anyway, so like if just imagine a scenario where someone who is not privy or has been um, taken advantage of in the past, or is very, very highly in their mind, right? And they'll read something like, trust in the Lord with all your heart and not rely on your own wisdom. You can see how that could be misconstrued, as in interpreted, depending on where or who they're listening to, that these people, they just want idiots. They just want people who are going to just accept everything that they say. And that's why religion is terrible. And I mean, they're not again, it's a subjective experience. So it's not as if they're wrong, right? Maybe the timing is just not right for them. Or if it's, something a little more malicious, maybe they have been in a cult or something where, you can imagine a cult leader saying something like this, like trust in the Lord with all your heart, not with your head, not with your mind, right? Don't think about it too much, just accept what I'm telling you, right? There is a danger there. But if you're reading this for yourself, right, and you're not under the guise that someone is potentially able to take advantage of you, right? This is where you can ask yourself, like, what is this trying to say, right? So to me, it's not necessarily saying that you want to recruit idiots or people that don't think. It's more along the lines of, like, you need to be a little more careful with what you think about, because you have to remember that the mind is constantly judging, right? So you're trying to make sense of the world, but the entire world of spirituality and God and Jesus, these things are not in front of us. Maybe they were at one point, but they're not anymore. And so it's an entire domain that is alien to us, right? We're only used to, the linear, right? ABC, cause and effect, Newtonian mechanics, those types of things, right? But all of that is under the domain of God and only exists because of God, right? And so there is a wisdom to be found here when it says that take heart over the mind, because there are just some things you cannot understand. It's what's the word they call it? Ineffable, right? Seekers of enlightenment have gone to grand masters or whatever they're called, to ask them, what is it like to be enlightened? And it's always kind of superfluous. It's not exact. It's ineffable, undescribable, right? And so when you open up your heart to God and to Jesus, you're not using your mind to do it. You're letting go of the mind. And that's what I think is what it's trying to convey here. But again, this is something that you discover for yourself. So, I mean, as much as I can say what this means to me, what relevance does that have to you? Because obviously your life experience is going to be completely different. The content of what you've gone through is completely different. So it's important to just check in with yourself and then dig deeper, just constantly digging deeper. So That was Proverbs. And then again in Matthew, Jesus himself says, something very similar, where, he says these things are hidden from the wise and the men of understanding, right? But they're revealed to children, right? And that's another clue, right? That tells you that when you think too much, right, that can be a hindrance. But the danger, once again, is that if someone is telling you, do not think about it, just give me your money, or give me your loyalty, right? You can see how dangerous that then becomes. And these are just a couple that I've picked out here. But these are all throughout the Bible, which is one of the reasons why it makes it one of the most dangerous pieces of text on the planet. I mean, think of how many countless people have been slaughtered over, in the name of God, right? The Crusades, I think, is one example. But, to this day, people are justifying acts of racism, acts of murder, acts of, very heinous things, all in the name of something that was written a long time ago. So to sum up, be careful who you put your faith in, who is supposed to show you the way, the will of God, or the knowledge of God. Because remember, gurus, legitimate people that have your best interests at heart and that have reached some level of enlightenment, they're far few in between. And from what I understand, a lot of the work is by asking yourself questions. What things mean to you and why? Even something as simple as, getting cut off in traffic, right? Why does that make me so angry? Where does that come from? What am I trying to justify? Is it righteous anger? That type of thing, right? And you keep asking those questions, and you dig a little bit deeper every time. And that enables you to go on a path of spiritual discovery, which is extremely important because it is a deeply subjective and personal journey that there are very few people that can legitimately tell you which direction to head in. And so we all have some work to do. And at the same time, it's okay to have conversations like the one that we're having right now. Keep an open mind, right? Have some, opinions, but always hold that degree of humility. No one actually knows anything except for God. And it's not as if he's down here specifically for us directing traffic. I mean, that's debatable, but yeah, salvation lies within. Anyway, thank you for joining me today. Hope you have a great day, and God bless.